Welcome to the Funeral Channel Network podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're doing a really special deep dive today
We really are.
because we're looking at something that bridges a massive gap, the space between, profound grief and just incredible active empowerment.
Right.
And to do that, we're unpacking a stack of sources all centered on the teal and white ribbon.
Yeah, the universally recognized symbol for cervical cancer awareness.
Exactly. And our mission today for you listening, whether you're a healthcare professional or maybe someone personally navigating this or, a curious mind, is to figure out how a simple piece of colored fabric does so much heavy lifting.
It's a dual-purpose emblem, really.
How so?
Well, on one hand, it's this intensely personal tribute to people we've lost.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's a literal blueprint for a public health victory. I mean, we are talking about a highly preventable disease.
Which is just wild to think about.
Yeah, it's rare to find one visual shorthand that holds both that heavy weight of memorialization and the aggressive momentum of scientific eradication.
Right. The threads of the ribbon sort of hold the past and the future at the exact same time.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so let's unpack this visual language before we get into the microscopic biology of it all.
Good idea.
The specific colors are teal and white. Now, standard awareness campaigns usually talk about colors representing healing or hope.
Which totally makes sense.
Sure, it makes sense. But the sources point out that clarity is a core meaning behind this specific combination.
Yeah, clarity is key here.
So I was thinking, is the teal and white ribbon essentially acting like a lighthouse?
Oh, a lighthouse. I like that.
Like it's warning us of a rocky, dangerous shore, right? But simultaneously shining this massive, undeniable light on the safe path around it.
The lighthouse analogy works perfectly, actually, especially
Yeah.
if you contrast it with how we normally talk about oncology.
What do you mean?
Well, the cultural lexicon around cancer is usually really combative.
Oh, yeah. Battling cancer.
Exactly, battling it or fighting some invading force. But the word clarity maps directly to the actual medical reality of cervical cancer.
Because of the prevention aspect.
Right. In this specific context, the hope of prevention comes entirely from our ability to just see the threat clearly,
Yeah.
long before it ever crosses the threshold into becoming a malignancy.
So clarity in medical screening is literally the mechanism of prevention.
Yes. Wearing that teal and white ribbon is a psychological declaration of that clarity.
It's a no-word statement.
Yeah, it says, I'm taking control, I'm looking closely at my own physical landscape, and I absolutely refuse to operate in the dark.
I love that. Let's pull on that thread of visibility a bit more.
Sure.
Because wearing a ribbon takes this inherently private health reality, something that's deeply intimate and, frankly, often really frightening.
Terrifying for a lot of people, yeah.
Right. And it forces it into the public square. It destigmatizes the conversation. You pin that ribbon to your jacket, and you are literally making the invisible visible.
And we really cannot overstate how disruptive that visibility is.
Disruptive how?
Historically, basically anything concerning women's reproductive health has been, well, it's been shrouded in societal silence.
Oh, absolutely.
There's this pervasive, almost inherited taboo about discussing the reproductive system openly.
Yeah, it's all hushed tones.
Right. But the teal and white ribbon acts as a wedge against that silence.
By bringing it into normal places.
Exactly. The workplace, the grocery store, the community center, you're normalizing a dialogue that used to only happen behind closed doors in sterile clinic rooms.
It creates a safe harbor for dialogue.
Yes. Encouraging people to ask questions about preventative care without that hesitation or shame.
Which brings us directly to the biological threat we're trying to, drag out of the shadows.
The silent stowaway.
Right, the silent stowaway. If our teal and white lighthouse is warning us of a danger, we have to look closely at what is causing the damage.
And that is the human papillomavirus.
HPV. The sources are clear that cervical cancer is primarily driven by persistent infection with high-risk strains of HPV.
Yeah, understanding HPV is basically the master key to this whole deep dive.
Break it down for us.
So the virus is a masterclass in evolutionary stealth. It is incredibly common.
At how common?
We're talking about infecting the vast majority of sexually active adults at some point in their lives.
Wow.
And its defining characteristic is that it's often entirely asymptomatic.
No symptoms at all?
None. It doesn't trigger a massive immune response. You don't get immediate inflammation, no pain.
It just hides.
It just takes up residence in the basal layer of the mucosal tissue and sits there.
Okay, wait. Here's where I have to pause.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at this paradox staring us in the face from the sources.
Let's hear it.
If HPV is ubiquitous, Like you said, almost everyone gets it, and it is completely silent with zero symptoms. How can the sources confidently claim that cervical cancer is one of the most preventable forms of cancer on Earth?
Sounds contradictory, right?
It sounds totally contradictory. How do you prevent something you can't even feel? It's essentially an invisible ghost.
That paradox is exactly what makes the medical intervention so revolutionary. The answer lies entirely in the dimension of time.
Time.
Yes. Persistent infection with high-risk HC strains doesn't trigger an overnight cellular collapse.
Open up fast.
Not at all. The virus causes abnormal cell changes, what we call dysplasia, over a very, very long period.
How long are we talking?
We're talking years, sometimes a decade or more.
A decade.
Yeah. It's this slow, gradual process where normal cells are hijacked and slowly mutated. The virus sits there, quietly rewriting the cellular machinery to produce more of itself.
Oh, wow.
And that massive time delay, that is its vulnerability. That gives us a wide open window of opportunity to intervene.
I see. So it's not about stopping a sudden, violent ambush.
No.
It's about catching the enemy while they're spending 10 years slowly trying to dig a tunnel under the castle wall.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
Okay, so because the virus is silent and takes so much time to do its damage, humanity had to invent ways to actively survey that timeline.
Right. We had to build watchtowers.
Which leads us to the twin pillars of defense that the ribbon represents: screening and vaccination.
Let's start with screening. Exploiting that time delay is the entire premise of the Pap test.
Right. And historically, before routine screening, cervical cancer was a leading cause of cancer death for women, wasn't it?
It was devastating. But the Pap test changed everything.
How does it actually work biologically?
It involves collecting a small sample of cells from the cervix and examining them under a microscope. And the key here is, we aren't looking for cancer at that stage.
Or not?
No, we are looking for the precursors.
Ah, the dyskaryosis.
Exactly, those slightly mutated abnormal cells that indicate the virus is actively altering the tissue.
Because if you find those abnormal cells early,
They can be easily removed or treated. You literally stop the progression before it ever becomes cancerous.
that's incredible. And working in tandem with the Pap test is the HPV test,
Right, which goes a step further.
because it actually looks for the DNA or RNA of the high-risk virus strains themselves, right?
Yes, it identifies the presence of the threat even before the cells start mutating.
Okay, so if I'm trying to map this two-pronged approach for you listening, the HPV vaccine is essentially like installing a top-tier firewall on your operating system.
Yes.
It blocks the malicious code from ever downloading. And meanwhile, the PAP and HPV tests are like running a routine scheduled antivirus scan.
To find and delete any corrupted files that somehow slip through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before they can crash the entire system.
That firewall analogy perfectly captures the mechanics of the HPV vaccine. I mean, the vaccine is one of the most profound scientific breakthroughs of the modern era.
Let's talk about why it's so profound. The sources mention VLPs.
Virus-like particles, yeah. This is fascinating stuff.
Break down what a VLP actually is.
Okay, so VLPs are essentially empty protein shells. To the immune system, they look exactly like the HPV virus.
But they're empty.
Completely empty. They contain none of the viral DNA, so they cannot cause an infection.
So they're just a decoy.
A highly realistic decoy. They train the immune system to recognize the specific shape of the virus.
I see.
So when the actual virus eventually shows up later in life, the body's defenses immediately recognize it and neutralize it before it can even infect the basal cells.
You are giving the immune system the exact line of code to recognize the malware before it installs.
Exactly. And the data behind this is staggering.
The sources say it has the potential to prevent the vast majority of cases globally.
If administered early enough, yeah. Ideally, before exposure to the virus during adolescence, though it still absolutely provides benefits later in life.
We aren't just treating a disease anymore. We are engineering its extinction.
But that extinction requires absolute societal participation.
Right.
The firewall only works if it's installed. And the antivirus scans only work if you actually run them regularly.
Which requires normalizing the procedures.
Yeah, and eliminating the discomfort and hesitation associated with gynecological exams, which is a huge hurdle.
So the teal and white ribbon serves as this visual cue.
To healthcare providers to proactively promote screening, and a reminder to patients to prioritize these visits.
But this brings us to a really harsh reality in the source material.
It does.
If we possess this incredible firewall and we have these highly effective antivirus scans that make this cancer so preventable, Why are women still dying from it?
That is the crucial disconnect.
If the medical tools exist, where's the friction?
The reality is that cervical cancer disproportionately impacts women with limited access to healthcare.
Underserved communities.
Mostly, yes.
So what does this actually mean for the everyday person listening right now? I mean, how does wearing a simple teal and white ribbon address a massive systemic socioeconomic failure like healthcare access?
Because a ribbon can't pay a medical bill, right?
Exactly. It can't build a rural clinic. It's just a piece of fabric.
No, it can't manufacture a vaccine or fund a clinic. But we have to look at the social mechanics of advocacy.
How so?
Systemic change always begins with cultural demand.
Okay, I'm following.
The ribbon fosters a culture that actively breaks down the barriers of silence and misinformation. Because there are still deeply ingrained myths out there.
Oh, about the safety and effectiveness of the HPV vaccine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is still a ton of fear around the screening process itself.
Right.
When women wear the ribbon, when they educate their communities, when they advocate for themselves and prioritize their health loudly, it changes the cultural temperature.
It creates a critical mass of expectation.
Precisely. By bringing the conversation out of the shadows, women's health advocacy exerts pressure on the healthcare system itself.
It demands that access to these essential services be prioritized.
Yes. The ribbon represents a unified push to address those disparities in healthcare. It's pushing for resources, funding, and education to be directed toward those underserved populations.
It is a symbol of structural empowerment.
It really is. It encourages individuals to take an active role, not just in their own biological well-being, but in the civic well-being of their communities.
So it's an active, kinetic tool. It forces open conversations about reproductive health that might otherwise remain buried under stigma.
Absolutely.
But we also have to acknowledge the reality that despite our best preventative efforts, despite the vaccines and the cultural push for screenings, there are still individuals who face a diagnosis.
There are.
For those who find themselves on the other side of that firewall, what does the landscape of care and survival actually look like today?
Well, the vanguard of medical research is continuously evolving, and it is dramatically improving the outcomes for those diagnosed.
Because we're moving past the older methods, right?
Yes, far beyond the traditional blunt force instruments of early chemotherapy. The focus is increasingly on targeted therapies and immunotherapy.
Okay, let's break those terms down.
Sure.
Because immunotherapy and targeted therapies can sound incredibly intimidating to someone just hearing them.
They do sound very clinical.
Yeah, they sound like sterile laboratories and abstract science. What is the actual mechanism at play here? Like, what does it mean for the patient sitting in the consultation room?
Well, immunotherapy is a fascinating shift in how we approach the disease. Because cancer cells are incredibly deceptive.
How do they deceive the body?
They often wear a molecular cloak.
A cloak?
Yeah, like the PD-L1 protein. It essentially tells the body's immune system, ignore me, I'm a normal, healthy cell.
Oh, wow. So the immune system just ignores it.
Exactly. The immune system's T cells just pass right by them. But immunotherapy drugs, specifically checkpoint inhibitors, act to strip away that cloak.
They expose it.
Yes. They block those deceptive proteins, suddenly exposing the cancer cells for what they really are.
So it essentially unblinds the patient's own immune system.
Yes, allowing it to aggressively attack the tumors.
That is incredible. So you aren't just bombarding the body with toxic chemicals, hoping the cancer dies before the healthy cells do.
Right.
You are fundamentally reprogramming the body's own defense mechanisms to recognize the threat.
Exactly. And targeted therapies operate on a similar level of precision.
How do those differ from traditional chemo?
Well, instead of attacking all rapidly dividing cells, which is what traditional chemotherapy does, and why you get things like hair loss targeted therapies, identify and attack specific weaknesses within the cancer cells themselves.
Give me an example of a weakness.
Like the specific blood vessels the tumor is trying to build to feed itself.
Oh, to get nutrients.
Right. By inhibiting that specific growth mechanism, you literally starve the tumor.
Wow.
These advancements are radically expanding treatment options.
But the data and the science are only half the story, really.
Oh, definitely.
The clinical reality is built on the backs of the people actually navigating these treatments. The sources highlight that the trials that prove immunotherapy works aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet.
No, they are built on the courage of patients.
Patients who volunteer for clinical trials. They are sitting in infusion chairs on a Tuesday morning, dealing with the physical and emotional toll, contributing their own biology to the broader understanding of the disease.
And that emotional toll is immense. The physical treatment of cancer absolutely must be paired with aggressive emotional and community support.
It's not just a physical battle.
Not at all. The network of support groups, counseling services, and nonprofit organizations is vital. They address the heavy, often unseen psychological impact of a diagnosis.
And because of the advancements in targeted therapies and early detection, we actually have a rapidly growing community of survivors.
We do, thankfully.
But survivorship is its own complex journey, isn't it? Surviving cancer isn't just a finish line you cross and then immediately go back to normal.
Not at all. Survivorship carries a heavy psychological weight. But what we see is that these survivors often become the fiercest advocates.
They share their stories.
They share their stories of resilience, and in doing so, they create a unified front. The teal and white ribbon honors their specific journeys.
It connects them.
Yeah, it connects individuals who share this profound, isolating experience of a diagnosis, and it transforms that shared trauma into a powerful network of hope and unified action.
Which really brings our deep dive full circle.
It does.
And perhaps to the most emotionally resonant aspect of our discussion today, specifically honoring the core focus of the Funeral Channel Network.
The memorialization aspect.
Exactly. What happens when the biological battle is lost? How do the families left behind process that grief, and how do they carry the torch forward?
Because the ribbon doesn't disappear.
Right. The teal and white ribbon doesn't disappear when a patient passes away. Its meaning simply evolves. It transforms from a symbol of active prevention into a deeply significant symbol of remembrance.
And the psychology of grief actually requires a physical anchor like that.
How do you mean?
When a family loses someone to cervical cancer, the abstract nature of the disease can make the loss feel incredibly chaotic. The teal and white ribbon provides a tangible, tactile focal point.
Something to hold on to.
Yes. But it goes beyond just passive remembrance. For grieving families, memorial items featuring the ribbon provide a meaningful way to celebrate the life of the person they lost, while simultaneously weaponizing that grief into active awareness.
Weaponizing grief. That's a powerful phrase.
It ensures that the loved one's legacy continues to actively save lives.
And this is where resources like the funeral program site become so incredibly important.
They really do.
They're recognized as one of the largest providers of these customizable, ready-to-wear cervical cancer awareness ribbons.
And the concept of customization here is profound.
It really is. You aren't just handing out a generic symbol. Families can personalize these ribbons with the name of their loved one, specific dates, and intimate, heartfelt messages.
Right.
I keep thinking of them as wearable legacies. You are taking this massive, global, epidemiological initiative and distilling it down into a deeply localized, profoundly personal tribute of love.
Wearable legacies captures the exact mechanism of what is happening. Memorialization, when utilized this way, is arguably the most profound and urgent form of public health advocacy.
Really? More than a billboard or a commercial.
I think so. When a family works with the funeral program site to design a personalized ribbon for a memorial service or a celebration of life, they are synthesizing their deepest emotional pain with a highly practical medical warning.
Yeah.
They are taking their private devastation and transforming it into a public, life-saving message for every single person in that room.
Just imagine the sensory reality of that moment.
It's heavy.
You are attending a memorial service, you are surrounded by grief, and you are handed a teal and white ribbon with your friends or your sister's or your mother's name printed directly on it.
Right.
You physically pin it to your clothing. It anchors the memory of that person in the physical world, absolutely. But as you wear it out into the world afterward, it acts as a relentless catalyst for future health awareness.
Doesn't let you forget.
Exactly. It is almost as if the person who passed is reaching out through that customized piece of fabric, looking at every person they loved and saying, do not let this happen to you. Go get screened, get the vaccine.
That is the ultimate power of a personalized tribute. It strips away the clinical detachment of a standard awareness campaign.
Because the statistic isn't always enough.
Right. A statistic about HPV prevalence won't necessarily motivate someone to schedule a doctor's appointment. But looking down at a ribbon bearing the name of someone they loved who was lost to a preventable disease, that absolutely will.
Yeah.
The funeral program site provides the necessary tools for families to make that profound connection accessible. It ensures that the act of remembrance is inextricably linked to the act of prevention.
We have covered a massive amount of ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
We started by unpacking the semiotics of teal and white, understanding how they symbolize the vital, life-saving clarity of early medical intervention.
The lighthouse.
The lighthouse, exactly. We ventured into the microscopic mucosal layers of the cervix to understand the stealthy, time-dependent nature of HPV and how it slowly hijacks cellular machinery.
Over years and years.
We explored the twin pillars of defense, the incredible biological firewall of the VLP vaccine, and the routine antivirus scans of PAP and HPV screening.
A literal blueprint for prevention.
We tackled the systemic, socioeconomic friction of healthcare access and how visibility creates cultural demand.
The disruption of silence.
Right. And finally, we ended at the profoundly personal act of memorialization, exploring how resources like the funeral program site allow families to turn their deepest grief into an active, enduring, life-saving legacy.
It is a comprehensive portrait of how humanity pushes back against the silent threat.
It really is.
We are moving toward a future where the primary focus is on increasing global vaccination rates and dismantling the socioeconomic barriers to routine screening.
Which is the goal.
Yes, but as we look at that future, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've discussed in depth how a customizable mourning ribbon acts as both a loving tribute to the deceased and a literal physical blueprint for the living to seek out preventative health care.
Right.
If that is true, could the future of public health awareness be driven not just by massive medical institutions or top-down government campaigns, but by the quiet, localized legacy of memorialization itself? Is the ultimate, most effective form of remembrance actually the act of prevention?
Wow. That is a powerful question and something that will definitely change how I look at awareness campaigns moving forward.
It reframes the whole concept.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Funeral Channel Network podcast for this deep dive.
It was an honor.
Whether you are wearing a teal and white ribbon in hope, in the pursuit of clarity, or in loving memory of someone you've lost, keep asking the hard questions. Keep demanding access to care, prioritize your health, and keep sharing what you've learned here today. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.